42%. Welcome back, everybody, to Hxro Labs Live. This is the Pit. My name is RT. I go by RandomTask555 on Twitter. To my left, we've got Z. Got on Twitter, Black Noise of, I don't know your exact handle. Yeah, Black Noise 06. If you guys are watching the stream, y'all know who he is. And we've got Gunny on my right here.
What up?
Back. We haven't been on for a while doing the stream.
Back. Been a while.
I've been just like daddy daycare over here with twins, new twins and all this stuff. But it feels good to be back on here. Had my lights set up. I did have my lights set up, but they won't connect to the firmware, blah, blah, blah. So we're rolling shadow face again. Anyways, good to have you on, dude. How you doing, Z?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. How you guys doing? Excited to chat.
Well, a little bit of FOMO. I'm not FOMOing, you're FOMOing. But yeah, like between friends, I'm enjoying this price action. I am, I'm as long as I can be on spot. And so the FOMO comes into like, could I be more leveraged? Could I have, I called my broker yesterday to try to pick up some Bitcoin ETF, and he did not pick up the phone. And then he hit me up at like 8 p.m. He's like, sorry, dude, super jam-packed day. Can I call you tomorrow? I'm like, it's risky. And we got another fat green candle today. So I'm priced out of the market. It's never coming back.
It's all good.
Mild emotions right now.
You got
a little short term, maybe a little short term parabolic. Like,
oh, dude, it looks ridiculous.
It's steep.
Bitcoin,
it's fucking red this week, dude. It's literally straight.
Yeah, it looks like it's one of these kind of cats out of the bag moments, and it's like I just picture like The Office where like Steve Carell's just like, okay, it's happening. Oh my god, it's not a drill, and it feels like it's already just racing to price in like a 42K target that a lot of technicians have on their charts. So we'll see. It's coming up to local highs. It's coming into resistance. FOMOing with leverage up here seems risky, but it might reward people. Who knows? I'm not going to do it.
What's the? There's got to be a GG capitulation price.
I think it's top range. If you look at so technically we're still in the same range as you said, but if we peak above I think it's like 31, 32K, there's a ton of people who shorted like 30K expecting us to break down further, and probably shorts that have been building over this past month of choppy price action because it looked terrible. And then you had the BlackRock announcement and stuff just like flip like that as it happens with Bitcoin. But I think, if we break above range highs, that's probably where you're going to see people get squeezed out, because this move, if you weren't buying during this chop the past month and you didn't FOMO in after the BlackRock announcement or early this week when the new candle opened, you're kind of just sitting waiting right now. So you have to wait. I'm probably going to chase it, I think, above 31K.
Yeah, I mean that's really the cat's out of the bag level. Whether it doesn't if it goes straight there right now, maybe wick close back below for a little bit, but that's when the race really starts. There'll be a lot of algos. I feel like there'll be a lot of trend trading systems that just kind of explode into play there. A lot of sideline cash still in the market in general. And it's funny because for a long time it was kind of like, damn it, the NASDAQ's going up. We had the ES ripping, and there was kind of like this when crypto thing. And it seemed to just be a beach ball underwater waiting for the right moment. And as if by some sorcery, it was this 200-day EMA, my high time frame, pump chaser zone, all kind of coming together right through this FOMC, which was the final puke, which made no sense because everything else kind of ripped higher.
How is the volume?
Cute setup. Volume's strong. Volume is strong, and it has all the markers of a high time frame breakout kind of continuation. So it's one of those ones where you feel disbelief. I've been long twice so far through this and just took it because it was some nice profits. I was like, I don't want to give that back. But now I'm obviously looking at it man, life's so easy if you just chill the fuck out and hold your longs. But there's a really cute setup down here with this wick back into that level. And then just even if you miss that wick and the fact it closed so strong, it was just oh, damn, we're going.
Yeah, that's when I bought spot, because I was pretty bearish into the lows, and
Me
then the
too.
BlackRock announcement came out.
And everyone was. I mean,
wait, do I need to buy back? And then I saw that wick, and I was like, oh yeah, I need to buy back. So that's why I started buying spot.
Well, and that's really like a veteran move to just know when to flip. Like, okay, I was wrong, but like FOMO early, right? And that's something I picked up through 2 cycles is like, if you're going to FOMO early, and I know me, I will FOMO in. I believe too much in this stuff, a high time frame to sit out of just say, guys there might be someone out there who's like, you know what, maybe it goes to 42K, but I'm going to wait for a dip. Like I'm not doing that. And if I don't buy here, if I don't buy somewhere through this, I'm going to just FOMO in at 31. So it's being able to pivot quickly. And I think BlackRock, I mean, even this has me in a bit of disbelief, just the speed of it, but yeah, cat's out of the bag now. And I think it's really, as Gunny likes to call it, a repricing event. You just get this whole new vision of like, holy shit, BlackRock ETF spot, US based, like that's $1 trillion of, onboarded Bitcoin minimum in 3 years or whatever, whatever you want to price that at. And that's going to shift the market heavily.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also like really important for sentiment on the space just in general, because literally days before you had a ton of news sites running like shift from crypto to AI, crypto's dead in the US, like because of all the SEC's action against Binance, against Coinbase, like saying that they've been selling illegal securities. And then you have BlackRock come out and essentially say, no, we're going to use Coinbase custody on the back end for our spot Bitcoin ETF. And then at the same time, like, I don't know if I think it was like a day later, you what Citadel, Fidelity,
EDX,
Schwab,
coming out with their like EDX exchange. So essentially, it's like, well, it's who's really wrong and what are they really trying to accomplish? It's like, do they really just want crypto under like whatever regulations, tighter regulations in the US, and they still want to like just be able to make money off of it, or they want it gone completely? And I think it's probably the former. So when people see that shift, it's like, well, there's no reason really not to have allocation to crypto, especially considering how negative the sentiment has been. Especially if you don't have like any exposure and you see BlackRock is filing for ETF, you know how much they have, like how much assets under management they have.
And they wouldn't file for that if they didn't have a significant amount of interest in the product already. You got to figure that they've done their research, they've got clients, they've got, they're like, okay, we can corner this market or whatever. So it's not like, hey, let's just file and see if anyone wants it. Like they probably have a pretty good idea of how much they can generate.
I mean, Larry Fink has always been a proponent of crypto and of Bitcoin, which is
always. I mean, he's definitely
you go far enough back. Publicly, far enough back. Not always, but yeah.
I mean, I heard some quotes. I think I saw some recently from like 2017. He's like, crypto is just something money laundering like index. Oh, money laundering index. He called it. But that's also how much psyop is that, right?
2020 forward.
Yeah.
Although I've been here since 2015, but still, yeah. I hear you.
I'm throwing some extensions and chaos levels on here. There's a lot of alignment actually with chaos and fib. And there's going to be some interesting levels here this year. I think it's fair to say that 31 wasn't the top for the year, which was pretty broadly the sentiment there for a little bit. So that's cool. For the altcoin bros, this is actually great news. I know short-term, mid-term, Bitcoin dominance is going to be pretty destructive. Let's see, it's on here. But as we know, like the best alt seasons, they all start with an absolute Bitcoin mania historically. So, yeah.
I would say like probably my best trades like last cycle was Q4, the Bitcoin rally, and that into altcoins. Altcoins got crushed in late 2020, like down 60-70% against Bitcoin that entire run. It went from like 10K to something, I want to say like 30K, whatever it was, like where we're at now.
Right here.
Like it went from 10K to 10K to like 40K. But on that entire run up, alts were kind of just like dragging. Some were dragging in USD, but they were getting crushed in BTC terms. But what people don't realize is like once you have Bitcoin rip like that, all those profits flow down into altcoins. Feel like, oh, I just made all this money on Bitcoin. What other like risk can I take in crypto? And then you see Bitcoin consolidate, and that's typically when the most money is made, at least for people with smaller like portfolio sizes, is in alts. Because for the bigger guys, Bitcoin and ETH are really the only things you can get a significant liquidity in. But it really just flows its way down. It happens every single cycle.
It's a beautiful thing. And I think this was the first time for a while that there was a lot of talk down here of like, maybe that era is over and all these alt L1s and the ETH are just going to really drive Bitcoin dominance down. That was a new paradigm prediction from a lot of people. But in good old crypto fashion, you know, we had a sweep of lows. Now I know a lot of people like to scoff at Bitcoin dominance, like sweeping liquidity, but it's really just an inverse of things like ETH, which probably sweeped on the ETH BTC pair. But yeah, I mean, we had DeFi summer, we had the end of 2020, like you mentioned, and then the most intense altcoin rally versus Bitcoin since really the 2017 explosion. Yeah, and it's been a 2-year consolidation now, and now it's breaking up.
I think the big takeaway on that is if you didn't FOMO early into this Bitcoin move, like maybe chasing it's not the right way to think about it, knowing full well that this is how the big hot ball of money gets moving.
Yeah.
And it will end up into like, it's really about getting in front of the next cycle to get yourself on the wave. So as some of those profits cycle out of Bitcoin into alts or into other things, that you're getting in front of that before it goes there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for people who aren't like active traders, honestly, probably the best way is just to have some exposure to Bitcoin, but still have your alts that you're going to buy long term, and you're going to get a better dollar cost entry if they're lagging Bitcoin anyway. So for most people, that's what I say. It's just like have whatever set portfolio that you want for the long term, and really just focus on that. Focus on like trying to buy cycle lows and like take profit on the way up. Because a ton of people just don't have the time to be like paying attention to charts like these. Like these past 6 days in Bitcoin erase like 40 days of literally just chop. But if you're not watching this chart every day, you have no idea. Like you don't know if Bitcoin was at 25K a couple of days ago, now it's at 30K. Especially if you're like working and not focusing on the space 24/7 like we are. That's why I say for most people it's better to just like have a long-term portfolio and do that.
If you can play the swings, yeah, like high time frame swing trading is definitely the bread and butter for people who don't want to stare at charts all day. And frankly, it's more profitable. It's a lot easier said than done. Like I struggle with it because it is my bread and butter, but I stare at charts all day. So like I'll stare at,
that's the worst. That is like the worst.
Yeah, it's the worst. Like it's the worst combination. It's like, hey, I'm in a long-term position I want to hold, but let me watch this chop for 3 months. Like
it's literally the worst. Yeah.
It's terrible. So I'm doing my best to like spend time doing other things. And a lot of that is like working on shit and help building up projects that our fund is invested in and stuff. But I've always got the one chart up top, and I actually got like really sick of trading through this. Like I was kind of like, I'm done for a bit. And then thankfully, after the BlackRock thing and what we talked about the low there, I was like, I think I can take a shot here. But I'm already out of that. I'm out of that leverage long. I made some good money, but obviously I'm staring at it today like, why did I touch it? Trading's not easy, man. Even a nice win is like, can be painful. And it looks like Bitcoin's going to take the highs today, which
you're never going to be satisfied. It's the bottom line. You're going to get out too early. You're not going to get out fast enough on other trades, and it's going to come all the way back and end up being a loser. Like it's just. Yeah,
I got some really good advice the other day. I'll share with you guys. I'm working with a mindset coach right now who works with like high performance traders, poker players, all that. And he pointed out something to me that was really profound. He basically said, like, if you don't have rules as a trader, this is not for like someone who's like, passive investor, but if you don't have rules for trading where it's like, okay, my max risk on any trade is 5% or whatever, then, or max position sizing, then you'll literally never be satisfied because you always could have done more. You always could have lost less. You just have this kind of flowy, unorganized thing. And this might be obvious to a lot of people. I already knew, you should position size consistently, whatever. But it's struck a different chord when he pointed that out, because and the context for this conversation was that I had made some money in a trade, and I was saying how weirdly unsatisfied I was that night because it was such an obvious setup and I should have made more. And he's like, well, if you had a rule and your max risk was X and your max size was X and you executed that and you won, that's where you find your satisfaction. If you don't have those rules in place, you live in a perpetual state of dissatisfaction. So that was profound to me, and it made me circle back to my plan and like really harden those rules, and then you just get satisfied by following that process, which something I knew before but had fallen away from.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that's why I harp so much on journaling all of your trades, like literally your risk, your reward, like what the setup is, like what your thought process is during. Because if you do that, you kind of see in real time what your weaknesses are and what your strengths are, and really what works and what doesn't work. But it also forces you to, like you said, have those parameters for every trade that you take.
And then just take the W and smile, you know.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, well, I could have been long 100 Bitcoin. It's like, well, you always could have been. And if you did the 100, you could have been 200, right? So there's an imperfection to if you don't have that in place. So that's something I'm working on. And then just like, sit on that 20K win, 40K win, like 5K win, whatever your size is, and just enjoy it and wait for the next one. It really is mental gymnastics to try to stay like satisfied in life as a trader. It's a very volatile, it's essentially gambling. So yeah, it's been a good week, but anybody who got shaken out through this, like you can see the FOMO right now. It's pretty incredible.
The pain is on the chart, dude.
yeah, the pain is on the chart. And so going back to like Bitcoin dominance, Gunny mentioned, this kind of idea that like, if you're not already in Bitcoin, chill, because it's probably going to circle back. I would argue like the whole FOMO early thing, like looking at this, it still feels early to me in this move. I saw somebody yesterday on Twitter that kind of like, everyone's talking about Bitcoin dominance, so like it's time to look for altcoins. I'm like, I think it's time to do some research. Asymmetric.
Yeah, you're only 24 hours into it.
Yeah, like some asymmetric, like low cap gem type new plays, LSDFi, whatever you want. There's probably some good shit out there, and I'm buying some of it. But the big CEX traded alts that really have liquidity against Bitcoin, like I just think they're going to continue to get ripped here for quite a while. Maximum squeeze. And this thing, as often things do, will run higher and longer than people think. 2-year accumulation range, if you want to call it that, is breaking out now. So I guess the question I have for you, Z, is how high do you think dominance can go here in the backdrop of like global kind of US ETF type shit? How big is the repricing, do you think?
Let me pull it up.
Potentially.
I'll pull it up. Let's see. I don't think you're going to see it go as high as it did in January 21. I don't think it gets the 70s. I think that would be crazy. But I think like 60, probably around there, I think makes sense. Like 60, 65, probably in that area, like 65%. But I do think the narrative that ETH is like more resilient, the ETH BTC pair this cycle, I think that has validity to it. So I don't think that will go as low as it did last cycle, which is kind of why I don't think the BTC dominance is going to go as high. Like if you get probably around like 0.055 on ETH BTC, and you have the Bitcoin maxes cheering like death of Ethereum, that's probably when you want to rotate back. I don't think you're going to see ETH get crushed as hard as it did in previous cycles, which is why I just don't think Bitcoin dominance is going to go as high. But generally, I do think the altcoins are going to underperform Bitcoin in Q3. I mean, it looks like it's about to break out right now. It might.
Ethereum?
While we're on stream, no Bitcoin.
Oh, Bitcoin. Yeah, I just got an ETH breakout alert. Actually, funny enough, as you were talking, yeah, Bitcoin is definitely going for these highs. God damn it. God damn that long I closed this morning. Actually, it was late last night. I was kind of like, I'm going to rest. I'm going to sleep on this. This feels good. But it is what it is.
No, but yeah. So like if you have Bitcoin break out of this range, which it looks like it probably will do in Q3, I guess we'll see
in the next 2 minutes.
Yeah, right now, but definitely probably in Q3. then I think you're going to have all BTC pairs, most of them underperform Bitcoin during the next quarter. And then you probably rotate back somewhere, I don't know, in those next months if you're trying to time the rotation. But yeah, I would say like 60-65% is probably where it tops out.
Okay. Time-wise, I like the idea, like especially if it rips into the event, it could be that like the initial trading of the ETF is a pivot spot. So you see the BlackRock ETF actually goes live trading, and it's maybe like the 2017 Bitcoin futures going live at the top. So who knows? But then you got the halvening next spring, which is usually a pretty good move for Bitcoin. So there's a lot of interesting stuff coming up. To fuel this thing. And yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think at least 60-65% is where I would say, because it looks absurd right now, especially when you look at what's going on in crypto and a lot of the cool shit that's being built. I wouldn't be shocked if it just surprises everybody and just really goes higher than that. But one step at a time here. We've got resistance coming up at the 52-53 mark, which again is probably just, so that would be like this. That'd be like the ETH BTC. ETH BTC fuels a ton of the Bitcoin dominance, obviously. So I saw Josh O post something yesterday, some TA, something to this, like this kind of like diamond reversal. I thought that was kind of funny. And he's just like, imagine this is just like a diamond top reversal type thing. And then we just, because it's breaking down from that. And if that's the case, and you guys know me on this stream, I love these high time frame reload zones, then like we're really looking down here, which would probably be an inverse of that 65%. So it would actually make a lot of sense from a technical perspective.
Yeah, if it goes that low, you're gonna have the ETH maxis crying on Twitter.
It's gonna be bad, dude. I mean, it really does feel like that. And then, what do you get down there? You get like BlackRock files for an Ethereum ETF, and then we have our alt season. So it's all part and parcel. I think just wanting, especially if you're like, even if you're like a semi-active trader. So like, there's a lot of guys in the pit that are like, yeah, they have day jobs, but they're paying very close attention to crypto day in, day out. I just, from my experience, it's like, don't fade the big Bitcoin moves thinking like, oh, I'll just hold these alts because someday they'll come back. Unless you're actually going to hold them. Because there's a lot of times where you say that and then you end up puking the lows because the FOMO gets too immense.
You're driving in the car and you're like, I got to go home and fucking get out of this position.
Yeah, because it's already started.
Which is then the low.
It's already started where you can't go on social media without being like, imagine not being long Bitcoin. And that's just breakout talk. When we're into like month 2 or 3 of something like that, it gets extremely uncomfortable. And if you can't deal with that, and you can't deal with that, I would say just recognize that early. I actually puked in 2017. What was it? Yeah, right here. I puked the lows on a lot of my altcoins right here. So this is when the Bitcoin futures went live. This was the top of Bitcoin. And then we got the biggest alt season. This is when like shit went 100x. Now, thankfully, I FOMO'd right back in, but I felt that like this was a long time. This was a very long, painful road. And as fate would have it, as most people do, puke the lows. So I'm speaking from that particular experience, but
I remember that, dude. I sold in 2017. What was it, 2017? No, in 2017, I actually made money on that like last altcoin rally, but it was because I was sitting in alt the entire time anyway. It didn't even matter. Like I had alts I just like wasn't selling while Bitcoin was ripping that entire year. And I was like trading Bitcoin. I was just on like I think like BitMEX or whatever it was, but I had alts that I was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna hold on to these, and they eventually did move, but it took literally like 5-6 months. So
it was disgusting. I was a May. Yeah, I was like a May 2017 noob. So like I joined in May 2017 in that alt season. So I was married to altcoins and then buying ICOs and all that shit. So finally, somewhere pretty much right at the top, I FOMO'd into Bitcoin. But thankfully had bought into all these ICOs, ICX, Dragon Chain, all this shit. And they all 100x in like 7 weeks. So, it was an okay year. and then learned how to give it all back in 1 year. So, but it's been a journey. So I guess that would be my point, is like from a technical perspective, like Ethereum Bitcoin pair can really nuke here. I keep some ETH just because I want to use it. Like I need to trade it. I want to pay fees. I'm in some DeFi stuff. I'm like LPing on money. Like, and there really is some nice asymmetric bets. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about, like, in this realm that we're discussing right now, what are some altcoins? Pepe's up 39% today. Like, what are some altcoins that maybe aren't going to suffer so much because they're not on these centralized exchanges with these market makers, like moving heavy loads in the Bitcoin pairs? Like, if you don't trade versus Bitcoin as an alt, you're going to be a little less susceptible to that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true. I think there are a few interesting ones that I've been looking at. Like, there's some smaller ones on chain. Actually, like in the Cosmos ecosystem, I've been looking at some stuff there. I don't know if you guys know Stride.
No, and that's great too, because I don't pay any attention to Cosmos, but I know there's some cooking going on over there. So let's talk Cosmos.
Yeah, bro. So that's the thing. Is like a lot of people don't have Cosmos in like the forefront of their vision. So there's typically alpha there if you're looking. But yeah, so Stride is essentially like the Lido, but for Cosmos. So they're relatively new. I want to say they're like a few months old since they went live. But yes, they focus on liquid staking for Atom and
Is
other pairs.
STRD?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that's it. I think
the chart looks great.
Yeah, so it's a pretty good chart. It like ripped earlier this year. I think it's probably in my opinion, it's one of the best ways to get exposure to the like entire gamut of the Cosmos ecosystem, because as Cosmos DeFi grows, Stride is going to grow with it, because it's like one of the major like liquid staking plays in the Cosmos. And as we know, Lido has been like literally one of the top performing altcoins over the past year or so. And Stride is essentially the same setup. But if you look at the Cosmos ecosystem, the stake rate is actually a lot higher than it is in Ethereum, like comparatively. So like if you think about that and how much that unlocks if Cosmos DeFi tends to take off, they're going to have to go through Stride or some other liquid staking provider, because so much Atom is already staked. So most of the Atom that's going to be used in Cosmos DeFi is probably going to be liquid staked Atom. So if you just apply basically the same analysis that you've done with Lido and how they make money to Stride, it's a pretty simple, I think it's a pretty good narrative play, but also good like fundamentally. That's one of the ones I'm looking at. But
nice, I love that. I haven't heard anything about Cosmos liquid staking, but I think that's a nice kind of echo boom that we could see, because obviously I think probably sector wise I'm most excited about LSDFi and LSDs on ETH. And then you got to think like Solana has the same, right, with Marinade and now Cosmos I didn't even think about. So that's dope. And Stride TVL, I just pulled up on DeFi Llama here, it's trending. It's going.
Yes, it's still small, but yeah, it's trending up. I think I want to say like around 100 mil market cap or something like that. But
yeah, 106. Yeah. So that's dope. I'm gonna add that to my watch list. And so that's the kind of thing, right? And then it's especially this type of coin, because it's sitting over there on Cosmos. Not a lot of noise. Not a lot of people are on that chain in general. It probably doesn't look like it's on too many centralized exchanges, if any.
Nope.
And so it's the one that you just turn around and you're like, oh fuck, there's a rally going on over there. Like I was just watching Bitcoin. So one that I like, and I don't know, the team's anonymous, so everyone just cool it. All right, don't blame me if but Hxro is good. Hxro is a liquid staking protocol I like. It's been very volatile. It's forming sort of a range post launch here. So that's one that I've been picking up. It's one of the few alts I bought during all the shit like a few weeks ago, and it's ripping. So like that and like LBR are kind of the two, in like LSDFi that I'm focused on. Pendle maybe, I don't have any, but keep hearing about it. That's my three kind of like on-chain alts that I'm like, these probably don't give a fuck about Bitcoin going up. If anything, they'll just roll with it. They've been outperforming so far. What else do you like outside of Stride?
What else do I like? I mean, honestly think so. My watch list is kind of broken into a few different like segments. So I've the alts that outperformed basically this entire rally, which is like Render, Injective, stuff like Optimism. Those are like my main kind of like not on chain, but like sex alts, like centralized exchange alts that I'm watching. Because I think if you do see like that turn in alts against Bitcoin, those are probably the ones that'll continue to lead just because they've been outperformers on the year, and that's typically what continues to happen. I think Render has a good narrative with the AI stuff. Optimism as far as L2s and Injective has just been ripping, kind of like a Dex Cosmos combination play. It's a decent looking chart. Those are probably
Optimism
like
looks really good.
Yeah, Optimism retraced all the way back to its yearly open actually.
Yeah, that was the major unlock. So I actually tweeted about that, kind of like, oh, I'm gonna buy this unlock as like a bullish unlock. I got nuked, I got stopped out on that, and I haven't looked back yet, but it's basically right back, actually a little up above that unlock level. I'm not too worried about it. Like, it's typically, you see the huge down and then it forms a range. So I'm not going to like full window it here, but I like Optimism as an eco play. I'm big on Pika. You heard of
Pika's entry. That's the new Dex or perp launch, right?
Yeah. They got perps there. They're already trading. Like you can go use it. V4 is coming out later in June. I bought into the public sale, so I'm pretty much just under break even actually. And but it did give a nice dip here. And yeah, they got a ton of pairs. It's like GMX on Optimism, I guess, is your high level comp, and then with V4 staking and ESPika and all that fun stuff will go live. That's coming up pretty soon, I believe.
Yeah.
So this is my kind of Optimism proxy right now. I have a bag of. Otherwise, no op. Do you like Render still? Like Render and all these things? Like, what's your take on that? I don't really watch the chart, but I'm seeing a lot of schizophrenia related to Render from the traders that I hang out with. They're like,
it's a very choppy chart. Actually, yeah. I've traded a bit and been like in and out of it, but haven't really had a big spot position I've just sat on because I missed the first rally really. But I do think it's one of the ones that kind of aligns with multiple things for me. Like you have the decentralized physical infrastructure play, then it's on Solana also, which is, as you guys know, like I think one of the best L1 setups. And then it's also like the AI kind of narrative. So it's a combination of things. But I haven't sat on it spot yet. I probably need to just have a long-term bag of it that I just keep.
Yeah, the weekly doesn't look like it topped. I could say that pretty confidently. I mean, it's had a year, so I wasn't one like that's going to go pick it up during some of those highs. But I think this is. I was saying this to my buddies the other day. We had a market call last night, and like, we're all going to sell too early. Like coming out of this bear, you're just like, damn, I got some gains, like 100%, 200%. Like I'm just going to take some profit here. There's a pretty good chance we're going to look back in a year or two and be like, God, that coin was 50 cents. Now it's trading at $42. Like, this coin was $2. Now it's trading at 27. Like there's going to be a lot of that. And if you just look for like high time frame bottoms on Render, like on coins, Render just put in this perfect, weekly W and it's just trending higher. It's just chilling.
What can you explain Render again to me?
Z, you want to go for it? I have a high level understanding. It's not very deep though.
Essentially, it's like if you have like GPUs that are being unused, like the Render network can take advantage of that, and just like you use those GPU power that like isn't being used. And so it's if you have this kind of push towards AI, which uses a ton of just like computing power on the back end for like they just to run all their algorithm stuff, and also for like rendering like 3D media and stuff like that. It's just a ton. There's a ton of unused computing power essentially that people have, and then Render is like the network that can take advantage of that.
Is there what gives? Is there anything other than the fact that like it's become a popular trading token? Is there anything that ties back to the token or not really? Value.
The value, I honestly did look closer at the value accrual to the token, but I believe it's tied to like whoever's participating in the network, like when you're, I think it's tied to like the staking or something that's connected to the token. I think you need to own the token to participate in like having your resources like allocated to the network. Pretty sure. But yeah.
Got it. Cool. I've been hearing a ton about it.
Yeah, cloud computing was kind of like cloud computing AI. Yeah, I mean, you're going to hear like chicken and egg, right? You're going to hear a lot about it because it went up in price. Or is it going up in price because everyone's talking about it? Like, I don't know. It's a bit of both.
Yeah, right.
Are you making like a one of these?
Yeah. I just realized I was trying to look for the surprised face because we just came into this GAN angle that I've been, on my high time frame chart here. I was like, oh shit, we might hit that soon. And it hit during the fucking stream. I'm like, wow, I was expecting that, tomorrow, maybe next week. And I was looking for an emoji of a surprised face, but I found these delightful little fingers. So that's what I've been doing while we were chatting about render. Keeping it real on the emojis. That's cool. TradingView now has a full emoji set you can put on the chart. Didn't know that. So we are coming into a GAN level, which has been a really solid high time frame GAN fan, or square rather. So there is an invisible line in the sand here that could mark a little local high. Let's see. As I cope my way into a follow-up call with my broker today.
Please pull back.
Well, bro, like now I got to call him today and not be mad at him because it's not his job to trade for me. It's an investment account. But I'm like, you got to pick up your phone, bro. Because I actually bought into the Bitcoin ETF back here. And then through this, I decided like it was too frothy. And I was like, oh, God, summer doldrums. So I sold at a very small gain, like maybe 1%. But it was like, okay, I didn't lose money. And then through all this, I was like waiting to reinvest it. And then during this breakout, I was like, okay, I think it's time. And then it's been 2 days. He didn't get back to me. And we're already higher than where I sold it. So that's the way markets work. Don't trade your investment account, kids. And now I have to make a decision.
My best ones are always either like just you just know there's some asymmetric information that you can just keep loading into a low or a puke, or I got lucky buying a low or a puke, or it had like an initial impulse up move and then pulled back, and then like on that pullback is always like where you start getting in, and then like once you're on side it goes like if there's a real rally here, like a sustainable one, like we're going to get a real cycle. It always seems that chasing it up is always like way harder to deal with than just like waiting for the pullback, and not like oh, I'm going to wait for it to go make the lows again. I mean, like there's going to be some breather. Could be 1%, 2%, 3%, who knows? But
oh yeah, I mean this will consolidate at some level sometime, and there will be a panic puke that makes you want to cry because you're probably over leveraged at that point. That's when they come, and like I know that feeling very well, and I will feel that feeling again. And when that feeling comes, I'm gonna have a plan with my broker to get in. Like it's a 2-year trade, and that's what I always told him through this. But it was affecting my trading, so I told him like, okay, one time I'm gonna puke this out. We're still up. And it was just an imperfect execution on the buyback, and that's it's going to happen 1,000
Dude, I was on a call. I was on a call 2 days ago with 2 other people like from the industry, and they're like, "How you feel about the market?" And I was like, "In 8 years of being in crypto, I've never felt this much like angst about it. Maybe when like Arthur had to pull the plug on BitMEX, like the dead low, and what was that, March 2020 or March 2019, whatever. But like, I'm going to bed at night. I have like a mild pit in my stomach about this market. I feel like absolute shit about it. I have to like slap myself in the morning, get myself pumped up. And like, I can't see where the forest is through the trees right now. And I said all that, and then I was like, so I should probably get fucking long right now.
Yeah.
Because it's always at that absolute moment of human despair that as humans, none of us can avoid, unless we're absolute fucking sociopaths, that like the market is just set up to destroy you like that. And
yeah,
at your darkest moment, thinking it's the worst time is always the time to like fucking go in. Always.
I had a dose of that last Monday. What was it? Right here. I was anxious. I was just like, and I wasn't even long. I had a good amount of cash in my account. I was actually kind of like set up to see it go lower, but I was like, like I just felt really anxious about the market in general. I was just like, this sucks. And thank God for the TRI algo. I got to plug this thing. These guys, they tweeted it out today because I think Brian's like, it sucks because they're not getting a lot of signups, which is insane to me, but like for their school. But this algo, I'm just going to pull it up. I'm just going to plug it here. This thing is the top 30 breadth indicator. Very simple, 2 moving averages. I don't know how they put them together. They're not simple moving averages, but you've got your overbought line, your oversold line. And when it crosses, it's a sell signal, and it pumps it out in the Discord. When it crosses bullish, it's a buy signal. And I finally, after watching it all year and just kind of like a lot of times getting chopped up somewhere in between this thing, counter trading it essentially, I finally was like, during this downtrend, I was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm not going to touch anything until this thing signals long. And when it does, I'm going to long. So for the first time, I decided to trade this thing. And it's just smacked. I mean, and it's still long. So if I was better at being a robot, I'd still be in this. But it signaled the long right here. And, you apply some very basic like TRI trading to that. And you say, okay, the long came in. Let me buy the next dip. So my initial long was actually here. I just happened to be moving funds in and I saw the wick. I was like, holy fuck. So I longed it. If I truly stuck to that plan, I'd still just be long because it's ripping, but it's not close to crossing bearish yet. But man, this thing, it's
never looked at that before. That's interesting.
Yeah, like it's just their own thing. It's on their site, but like it's the kind of thing, like I low key think that they created it saying this would be a nice tool for the community, and they might have created like, I don't want to sound like hyperbole, like a god tier algo. Like this is the kind of algo like a fund would create and like not share. Is what my 2 cents, because eventually it gets known to be so powerful that it gets washed out a bit, but it's fucking smacking. So I just want to plug them on that because that's why I got long when I did. I all in my cash to spot, and I took some leverage, and it's still running. Now my spot, I'm not touching till that sell signal comes in, but my leverage, I've been in and out a couple times because it's just hard to see a teacher's salary come and go. I was a teacher before Z, if you didn't know, for 7 years. So, it's hard to see a year's salary like on my screen and not just grab it. Even still, I just look at it. I say, I think I'll take that today. But this thing, it's been really powerful. So. Ooh, we got Tostada coming in. There he is.
Oh, what's up, guys?
What's up, dude?
Welcome, bro.
How's it going, dudes?
How are you?
Welcome.
Z, dude, big fan. Nice to finally meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
What you guys talking about? Solana?
I think Solana's
shit, guys. Circa's here. Circa's here, guys. Everybody,
we're coping about how we're not left long Bitcoin. That's what we've been talking about,
dude. Yeah. when we deviated 25.2, I went from like it's over on last stream, and then in the pit I was like, yeah. As soon as we got back above 25.2, I was like, pretty bullish.
Dude, I watched your stream last week. I was really close to getting to join. And I didn't, but I watched it, so I was sidelining it, and you guys were depressing as fuck.
Well, it's like
how low do you think we go? Like the whole conversation was like, how low do you think we're gonna go? It was
I was
not
low
one word about
day,
like,
dude.
Should we be bullish?
But like,
it's cool, but
it was a very defined level, right? Below 25.2, not great. Above 25.2, looking good, especially with the deviation. But we were below it, as opposed to like a YAMG level where it's like above 60K is bullish, below 30K is bearish.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to have you back in, and that's it. I posted that too. I put some deviation range stuff on my chart. Just
dude, I liked it. I was a big fan.
Yeah. So for those of you not aware, I'll draw up the range he's talking about, but it was a pretty sweet little signal, and that range got obliterated. I mean. If you were trading that range, you had a really nice trade. You made some great money, but it did not sweep and reject. There was no range left. It's just destroyed. So it's a trend now.
Yeah.
And in a trend, higher lows are the place to deploy. And that's going to be extremely hard for people. In fact, it is the people FOMOing in right now at some level. Maybe it's not now. Maybe we go to 40 right away. I don't know.
I think 32 is where I'm looking. I'm really looking at 32.
But the people that FOMO into this insanity are going to produce the dip, that I am next longing. Like, it's just the way it must. It's just the way it must be, guys. I'm sorry.
Although we're getting a big old retrace after filling an FVG. Not to get controversial in here, but a thin auction, let's say, at the top.
Your weekly FVG. I saw you post about it yesterday. What do you got?
Yeah. It's interesting. It's been an interesting little holy shit rally from 25.2. I'll say that. But yeah,
fair to say it looks like a breakout, which is really what you wanted, right? So for all and we could talk about the psychology of it. Like, we're all sitting here long. Nobody here is short, I assume.
I've just been adding shorts every time I get liquidated.
But I couldn't be longer on spot because of that algo. Like I just mentioned, I was like, fuck it. Okay. My cash is going back into Bitcoin. It feels so vanilla too, right? When you're used to trading leverage, like a 1x long feels like nothing. You're like, okay, I'm just going to buy it.
That's the thing people forget about crypto once you start getting lev. It's like,
but I'm still sitting here uncomfortable, and it's fine. Like I'm used to being uncomfortable, but it's just funny how things go exactly your way. You all in your cash, and things start mooning, and all you can think is like, couldn't I have been longer?
Yeah.
But no, I'm not actually coping too hard. Minor healthy cope.
Z, when do we get a new research report, dude? You've been completely dormant.
I know, I've been chilling.
With the free.
I'm actually probably gonna put one out soon, honestly. I feel like there's a ton of stuff to write about right now.
Yeah. Where do you post them? Can we plug your research? I have admittedly not been following your research, and I love a good bit of research.
Well, I haven't put any out in a minute, but yeah, on Substack, that's where they'll be at.
Right here.
It's I think it's attached to my Twitter. Sweet. Yeah, same app, same URL.
I get that Substack email. I'm like, ooh, new research report? No, Matt Taibbi, dude. And I'm disappointed every time.
Am I the only guy here without a Substack account? I'm gonna make one and subscribe. I'm not on Substack. I've never been on there.
I remember your last one, Z. You were just getting. I know your research style is to just get really deep into tech and read stuff that melts the average brain. But you were, late 2021, early 2022. You were talking a whole lot about modular stack. What was it? Octa? I forget what.
Octa,
yeah. You were super into that stuff. How has that evolved over time in terms of your outlook on modular blockchain tech?
I still have the same similar thesis that long term, if we do scale up crypto to have like a lot more users than it does now, I think eventually you're going to have some modularity where you're going to need to push some of the activity off chain and use rollups. But I think it's kind of adapted. Well, not really all that changed all that much. But I think that the core focus that kind of gets missed with a lot of the modular discussions currently is like scaling the base layer first before you need rollups. And I think Solana is interesting because there's currently it's currently a lot more performant, can do a lot more TPS than a lot of other L1s. And since it has the setup where you have isolated fee markets, as in the fee markets that spike in one application don't affect other applications on the chain. And if you have a L1 that's modular in that regard to how you scale at like the base layer, then it will take a lot longer to reach the point where you're so congested that you're going to need rollups.
Right.
But I think longer term, I still have the same thesis. Like if we only have, I don't even know what the probably like daily active users, like 500K or somewhere around there, like on each L1. But you got to think if we have a lot more applications that aren't that are like that are restricted by just like the 15 TPS you can do on Ethereum, then like longer term you're going to need rollups. And you kind of have like people starting to come to that conclusion even on Solana. You have teams, I think Cube is one of the teams, but they're focusing on building like an off-chain.
I'm an advisor to Cube actually.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So yeah, you know Cube.
I actually just heard about it for the first time yesterday.
But yeah, so I think there's going to be that modular push where you're going to probably have application specific rollups that do certain things. But I think it makes it a lot easier for those L2s to work when you have an L1 that's a lot more scalable, which is one of the reasons we're bullish on Solana.
There was one you were talking a lot about that I don't think the token ever actually came out, but it was about separating data availability and execution. What was that? What was the name of that one?
Celestia.
Yeah, Celeste, that's the one. Yeah. So what happened with that? Because I remember that was huge. Is like we're getting all this congestion. It was the heat of the bull, and those solutions were a lot more attractive, obviously, than they are now.
Yeah. So yeah, the ETH guys were not happy with me back then when I brought that up, because my thesis was, and it was like a very early thesis, but I was thinking that if you were to design a system from the ground up where you have like one layer for data availability, one layer for settlement, one layer for execution, you wouldn't design Ethereum in the way that you designed it as it is now. You would design something that's purely for a data availability or something that's purely for settlement, and it only focuses on that. And that's kind of what Celestia does with data availability.
Yeah, it's like having your hard drive and your CPU on the same chip.
Yeah. So their token's not out yet. I think their token is, I want to say later this year or something, but I know their testnet is out. I talk to those guys all the time. They're super smart. And they're pretty well connected with the rest of the Cosmos ecosystem. But yeah, it's gonna get a lot more interesting with the rollup discussions when it's not just Ethereum that's the main settlement and data availability layer that these rollups use on the back end.
I think all these narratives pop back up when we get like $20 transactions on Arbitrum and shit like that. Like when the heat of the bull comes in and these like even the rollups are congested, that's when like I think all these narratives really spike back up.
Yeah, we've kind of seen it a little bit.
Yeah,
like a ton. But I think it's interesting that even like the rollups that are in production right now are kind of aware that they're going to need to further scale their execution layers to be more performant. Like Arbitrum, I want to say they're focusing on, what is it, Arbitrum Stylus. That's like their upgrade that's in the works. Essentially allows you to build, what is it, in like WASM and the EVM at the same time. So like it's going to be more performant in that way. And then you have Optimism, which is like they're doing a ton of stuff to make the EVM more performant. But yeah, like they're definitely aware. All the rollup teams are aware that just the base EVM as it exists now is not enough, even if you don't have the same issues with like state bloat that Ethereum has.
Word.
So yeah.
So why Solana, man? Why are you so bullish Solana? What's going on?
I think Solana is in an interesting place where the public sentiment on it is divergent from the technical merit of the chain and also the teams building on the chain. I would say, honestly, when I was behind Solana from like $1, $4, like $12 back in 2021, there was not nearly as many like strong teams building on the chain, not nearly as big as a community. Like there wasn't even the NFT community. And now currently Solana is like second, I want to say, or third, whatever, in like daily active users, like the most active NFT chain behind Ethereum. And it's still doing more TPS than like all of the other L2s combined. And I think a lot of the issues that people had with Solana in 2022 have been resolved by a lot of the like technical upgrades that they pushed from like last summer to now. I want to say the chain went down 3 or 4 times in the first half of 2022, and most of them were because of congestion due to people spamming the chain during NFT mints and other issues where like they were processing a ton of transactions, but because there were essentially no fee transactions, there was no like limit on how like whatever these bots were spamming the chain, and that they couldn't handle how much was getting processed. So then, like after that, they implemented Quick, and they implemented like the isolated the fee markets for Solana, like the priority fee. And since then, I want to say like second half of 2022, chains only going down like twice, and they were for different.
It went
reasons.
down. It was once. It was, and I think it was really. I don't know if it was the end of 2022 or the beginning of 2023. It had more to do with an upgrade, a validator.
Yeah, it was a
upgrade.
different reason.
They couldn't coordinate. They were trying to coordinate, 4,000 validators or something. Because I remember being in the validator chat at the time, and I mean, it was like, in full disclosure, it was a fucking mess. It was a clusterfuck. But out of that, they came together and came up with some better ideas to better communicate how, when these things happen, to prevent these shutdowns. So
yeah,
right. And there's also like even more like coming, I want to say later this year, like Fire Dancer is another client that the Jump team is working on. Like client diversity is also a big thing with blockchains that I've been learning about. Kind of Ethereum has multiple different clients, and Solana really only has the one, I think, built by Solana Labs currently. So that's also an issue that can raise problems if you have, like as you said, issues there when you upgrade like your core infrastructure. So that's Fire Dancer is another thing that's coming out later this year, and it's supposed to be a lot more performant, like how much TPS it's supposed to be able to do. But
they've claimed that in testing they've gotten upwards of like 600,000.
Yeah, and I went to I listened to Bowers like the talk. I was at Breakpoint, but I feel like I need to go listen to his talk a ton more times. He's like a super smart guy, but it's so low level stuff, like the engineering that they're doing and what they're working on. Definitely not like easy to explain in layman's terms.
No, it isn't at all. But the fact that it's being led by a team whose primary goal was to make transaction messaging and acknowledgements as fast as physically possible, which, in traditional finance, in ultra low latency or high frequency trading, they're now down into like picoseconds in terms of like tick to trade, and messaging that it's probably the team that you want leading something that is trying to be highly performant at scale. So we'll see what happens.
This conversation brings me back to a tweet I saw in the wee hours of the morning. Lightspeed from Helios. I don't know if you guys follow him or heard of him, but he basically highlighted this. If Solana can't gain majority mindshare when it has superior tech, how can it do so when the other chains and L2 start to close the gap? Because they're all in this race to scale. And he put out a thoughtful Facebook-esque thing. I don't know how I feel about these long tweets. I was really enjoying Twitter for its brevity, but you get these novels now. But anyways, it really just is this conversation. And I agree with you, Z, that there is a gap between sort of where it's being priced and what potential it has. And there's really two things that I see holding it back. Number one is like, what are you going to do there? There's not a lot to do there. I actually kind of had like a couple of weeks ago, I was looking at the chart. I was like, man, I'm going to just start parking Solana. It felt like AVAX pre-Joe explosion, right? Like it felt like there was minimal TVL, but then you get on there and there's like pen. What was that other one? Not Joe, but the other DEX that used to be cool on AVAX. Pangolin. Yeah. So like in that moment, around whatever it was, August 2021, like, and then you go on chain on AVAX and everything 100x'd in like a month. So I was getting that vibe with Solana recently, thinking maybe I can get smart and park some capital and like Marinade and a few others. But I moved funds over there. There's not a whole lot to do. And then number two, and then that's going to change. There's a lot of stuff being built. The dev
Are you teeing me up? Are you teeing me up, RT?
I am teeing you up. But the number two thing, and this is the big one, is the bridging solutions, right? The bridge situation is very challenging. It's gotten better. I will say Wormhole has improved since I used it last year, but it's still not there. And so we're looking at things like Layer 0, MetaMask. I heard a rumor. I don't know. I just feel like I heard that somewhere. I actually have no source whatsoever. I made it up. But MetaMask, maybe some bridging stuff. We've got YOLO Nolo even toying with some bridge stuff. But I think we need the bridge. You know, ETH is still the home of TVL. Things that are close to it, the closer you are to it, the better it is.
Yeah.
That
I mean, that's what
bridging
I tweeted that
solution
yesterday. It was like,
have you guys used Mayan?
discussion. Oh, go ahead.
Which one?
Mayan?
Mayan swap. Yeah.
I have not. Is that a bridge?
It's one of the newer ones, bro. I literally just found out it existed. I want to say 2 weeks ago, and I feel like I know a lot of the Solana stuff. But yeah, it's called it's Mayan, Mayan. Mayan Finance, I think, is the Twitter. But yeah, it's a pretty good bridge. You can bridge from Arbitrum, you can bridge from ETH, and it lets you convert like directly from whatever to Solana or USDC. Like it does all of it for you, and it's pretty good. The UI is pretty good. I like it. It's decent.
So
I definitely agree though. Like what to do, like the things that you can do on chain. There's not as much. The thing is, there's not as many financial games that people push out all the time on Ethereum. Like the past couple months on ETH, most of the volume on Uniswap has been like a lot of memes and like stuff like that. But there's also I feel like a lot of like newer innovative DeFi stuff that just gets pushed out constantly. Like even if it works or doesn't work, there's always something for people to do on mainnet or like something like that. And then just generally, I think there's more tokens on ETH than like comparatively to Solana DeFi. But I think, well, I don't know for sure, but I feel like a lot of the Solana DeFi projects, the newer ones that don't have tokens, it would probably be good for them if they were to like incentivize users who would like out of the users on chain, because there's not a ton of people active in Solana DeFi right now, but if they were rewarded for that in some way, I think that would be pretty cool. I think that would help just like the general sentiment around DeFi and Solana.
Yeah, that post I just shared from what's his name from Helios, he mentioned that too. He's like, you know, can we get an ecosystem fund? Like, can we just show people that there's investment here and value here? And getting over there and like posting LPs and doing all this stuff that you might do on chain, it's the kind of thing that's like not there until it is. And once it's there, I feel like it'll catch fire. It's going to have a season. Maybe it's a Solana summer, maybe it's 2024. But the other thing, and this is kind of the elephant in the room always with Solana, is Rust. You know, EVM has a robust library of smart contracts, things, you know, like a ton of that shit you just talked about being posted onto Ethereum is copy paste. There's so much accessibility for developers to push stuff out there. And then when you try to go and create the same thing on Solana, it's like 120,000 lines more code, and it's a code that not as many people speak. So in a way, I think like that gives us asymmetric edge in the sense that it's like, hey, we can kind of see that coming. There's a reason it's lagging. There's a language gap, a language barrier. So if anything, that kind of makes me more, I don't know, bullish on being early to it, because there's just a huge holdup because of dev power and complications and audits. And
yeah,
there's a lot.
I'll say there's definitely a gap between like how strong the EVM dev community is and like the community on Solana. But I think that's just a time thing. Like Ethereum was around from what 2014, 2015 till now. Like, and we didn't really see DeFi pop heavily until what 2019.
2020 really, like that summer, DeFi summer was really, you know,
that was like the big time. Yeah. So I think it'll happen. I mean, I think it does need to happen in the next couple of years, though. I would say there definitely is a time on it.
Clock's ticking.
Bro, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen in the next. It's already happening, I think.
So here's your tee, Gunny. You're at the tee. Get your driver. It's happening.
You want me to get the driver? And
yeah. Well, look,
right now,
I'm gonna pull up the video that I retweeted last night about this guy right here. But yeah, hit us up.
No, I mean, look, I have been standing at that intersection of Solana DeFi, which I've been involved in for 2 years once we started building Hxro Network there, and EVM DeFi, and have had the luxury, you know, like the benefit of having a good group of larger EVM DeFi players that are good friends and guys that have gotten involved, and a lot of the sentiments echo what Z was saying. You know, the first things first was like, there's just not a ton to do once you get over there. not being able to bridge like easily, like where you can just drop down a MetaMask, like a chain from the drop down and move over. Like things like that are major friction points and always have been. And some of it is cultural and some of it is just like the sheer size of some of it, is not the sheer size, is what you can and can't do like easily. Not even with Rust, but like Solana has compute limits, for example, when you're building, and like you have to work within the context of compute limits as an example. And a lot of the functions that you can more easily do on Ethereum, sometimes you can't do on Solana, or you just have to get more creative with how you go about it. So we've made a commitment at Hxro Network to, because what we've built is really this liquidity engine, or this like liquidity layer where dApps are building on top of us, which now we have, I think, close to 17 that are building on it. And there are a couple of like what I would consider more marquee ones that are coming to market. And we've thought heavily not only about like Hxro token mechanics and the importance of like of incentives and how to, you know, work flywheels into your ecosystem, but also how they interact with the dApps that are building and the token ecosystems that are happening there. And so like I think that you're going to find a huge uptick first with Hxro Network, like in terms of how you can stack incentives, the things that you can do that are very similar to what you see in EVM DeFi. And then the hope is, and then on top of it, like we've actually dedicated some grants to some builders that are doing things to make it, for example, so and they're going to use things like Mayan Finance to, you know, to act as intermediary, but like so you can connect MetaMask directly to Dexterity, which is like the main derivatives protocol on Hxro Network. So any dApp that is built on top of Hxro Network, you effectively are going to be able to connect from a MetaMask wallet or a Solana wallet, either way. So like we're solving a lot of those things now in lieu of layer 0 coming on board, which I don't think is really going to happen until closer to the end of the year or the beginning of 2024. And then and then really like I think the last thing I'll say is like just I think we're actually one of the only projects, although we're seeing a couple more now, that actually have thought heavily about their token and how it works within the ecosystem and how to actually like utilize the token, how to like create real value accrual. So, you know, for example, all of the like 50% of the trading fees from the network go back to stakers. Our staking mechanics are very like VE style. And you know, I hate to sit here and pitch all this right now, but I guess it is a Hxro.
You
pitch.
love it, dude.
But we've dedicated all of it, and I think the last point of it like so there is something to do now, and then the dApps that are building on top of it, you're going to start like one thing you're going to see is like this concept of like stacked incentives, like how when you trade through dApp A and it integrates with dApp B, and then you have like all these incentive, this really neat incentive system, and you know real value accrual system at the base with Hxro Network, like how you now can compound incentives or stack incentives just through one transaction, operating through one dApp. And like there's some really cool things that I don't want to kind of rip the panties off, so I'm gonna I don't want to get too deeply into it because I want it to actually be cool when it gets out on, you know, socially and stuff. But really thinking about that, and like we've taken a shit ton of time to think about like and start and actually dedicate resources to building these things that are also tools that maybe I would like are somewhat maybe analogous to like how Balancer has like a good suite of tools for token market stuff. Like we just did a partnership with Sci Finance, that's like another OG Solana project, to start building some of these tools, like not only for Hxro Network but for like the entire Solana ecosystem. And like starting to see some projects like start to think more about it. And the bottom line for me, and like this is something that came from, guys like Messi and other guys like, and Z just said the same thing. It's like, you have to give larger DeFi players something to do, something interesting to do there. And I think if we can work this bridge, like I am just a huge proponent that like the entire left side of the curve in DeFi is on MetaMask. And so like, why try to pull people off MetaMask? Why not just like plant your flag into MetaMask and just make it super easy for them? However you do it, make it easy for them to get over the line. Just reduce friction to where the user base is. And I think as we do that, you're going to like not only see a huge uptick in activity with Hero Network, which we're already seeing with just a couple dApps up, but
I got to ask,
you're going to see it across the board. So
on that note, real quick, I got to ask, what happened here? Somebody tweeted out yesterday there was like 1.5 million in fees in one day yesterday. I was like, what the fuck? Who's online? I work with you, but I actually don't know.
No, that wasn't fee. That was just in perp volume. Yeah.
Volume. Okay.
Which like the perp just launched. So like.
Yeah. No, that's dope. Okay, cool. Love seeing that.
Yeah, and it's doubled. It's not doubled. It's like I think it's at like 2.6 today. So it's walking up.
Sick. Okay.
Yeah. Go on.
The one thing that's like really perked me up, I mean, like this is gonna sound like duh, like I should have known, obviously, but like I think more and more these days about the liquidity fragmentation problem, and seeing Hxro as like a solution to that is like it didn't occur to me as obviously as it does now, and I'm wondering what Z thinks about this, but it just seems like the more people compete with each other, the more liquidity fragments across chains, across apps, like, and it becomes a significant problem where like, if you actually pooled all the liquidity available in the entire ecosystem, cross chain, cross app, like we would have far less actual slippage problems, far less like efficiency problems and
horizontal dilutors.
Yeah. It makes me wonder like, what does that become a big narrative in terms of, like obviously that introduces more competition, but it's like, it seems like one of the biggest problems for user experience that exists. And it seems like the only, besides like what I think ZRX like is a solution to that. If I'm not mistaken, SNX is like, works on that problem as well, but there's not a whole lot of awareness of that narrative amongst the, the crypto natives, it seems like.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot more apparent on Solana because the TVL is like a lot lower, or like not TVL and activity is a lot lower than it is on Ethereum. So like there can be a ton of fragmentation on Ethereum and the other ecosystems just because there's a lot more users. But since Solana is like really trying to reboot, restart, it's basically the entire DeFi ecosystem. You feel it a lot more. So I definitely agree with that. I'm honestly not sure what the best way is to address like the competition thing, because I know there are like a lot of perp dexes, a lot of perp. I think there was a lot of perp options, like protocols also. I want to say a few of them kind of like winded down, if I'm not mistaken.
Most people can't figure out how to trade or understand perps. They're not understanding options.
I agree with that.
I worked with Gunny for 3 years and I still don't understand options. He talks to me about them every day.
Been trading them for 30 years.
Yeah. He's like, learn them. I'm like, I'm trying.
Yeah.
Every time someone's like, we're building an options desk, options are the next big thing, I'm like, wrong.
No.
We'll see player.
Yeah. When buy, when sell. Like that. It's complicated. You throw theta in there and I'm just like, wait, what?
But yeah, no, I agree.
No, I appreciate that.
What coins are you looking at on Solana now? I mean, is it a broader, like, I think shit's coming for Solana and I'm here for it? Or like, do you have positions you're like, nibbling at? I've named a few today that I'm interested in. There's very few to choose from, like, to be completely honest, on-chain ones. And weirdly, a lot of the on-chain ones aren't trading on-chain. Like all those FTX ones, like Oxy, Maps, all that shit, you can't find liquidity on chains. It's a really strange situation right now. But what are you looking at?
Yeah, I'm definitely not touching Oxy, Maps.
No, don't do it. You can't anyways, but just in case you wanted to, you don't.
By the way, if you want close to bid, I'm sure we can find sellers for you.
Oh yeah, that was a joke.
Yes.
What's a lot of DeFi stuff? I think what's interesting. I think Shadow is honestly interesting. I'm honestly, I need to do more research on the token side as far as like how they're accruing value to their token. But I know Shadow does a ton of work with like storage for protocols on Solana, like off-chain storage. And I know that there's a lot of applications now that are being built out on top, and like that ecosystem actually is a lot more complicated than I originally thought. So that's like one of the ones I'm looking more closely at.
It's forming a nice trough here. I don't mind that at all.
Oh, is it, dude? I have it. The chart is literally like down only. Like I'm just buying it blind.
But like this is what,
like it's down. It's down so much. I know it's been sideways. That like eventually, if it gets any kind of a narrative, it won't even really matter what like the chart looks like, because it'll rip just so much from being down so much.
Yeah, I mean it's just one of those ones. Like most things you find, altcoins that are just literally trending down, you just don't want to touch. Like let them go. They'll go down 99, then 99, 99. But this one's got a nice.
Look, there's going to be some new projects coming out on Hxro Network soon that are going to announce or already have announced that are being very thoughtful about their token economics and the way the token interacts with their DApp and with the network as a whole. I think maybe I'm slightly biased, but I think it is going to set a new paradigm for how we look at DeFi tokens in Solana, because I think the biggest mistake that was made in Solana was they never thought about the token, like the economics. It just was like
high FTV, low float,
high FTV, low. Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, a lot of the early DeFi projects, it looked like they didn't really care about the token. They got paid off from their early whatever funding or whatever it was, and then the token was like, well, we don't care about the token because we already made our money from like the VCs.
For the record, we did not. Our tokens, were locked for 4+ years. So we even though we raised some money, we never saw a dime of it. It just went into building. So.
Yeah, not talking about you guys. But yeah,
I was. No.
I don't want to throw the baby up the bathwater.
Yeah.
But look, I cut you off there just to point out that of all the tokens I've looked at in Solana, because it is a bit of a ghost town. We sent a couple of our analysts in there for my fund to like find us some good shit. They're like, there's not a lot there. But Shadow looks good. I mean, you want to see this kind of weekly W forming a low. That's a potential low that could form a floor, and now we're dripping into the reload zone off that. So I actually really like Shadow here. What else were you thinking?
Interesting.
Like technically, yeah, it's all right.
Yeah. What other ones? I mean, honestly, I agree that like the best plays in Solana DeFi. Oh yeah, it is kind of going sideways. Thank you. But yeah, the best plays in Solana DeFi are going to be literally like the newer tokens that launch. As you said, I know you guys are working on some protocols that are going to be launching on top also. But I think literally if you're active with the DeFi protocols on Solana and are like really paying attention to what new stuff is being built out, that you're going to get rewarded in some way. I think that's kind of what I've been thinking. That's my thesis on like Solana DeFi.
Watching the flows, like TVLs and volumes and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about what's the other coin? Marinade. I don't have any right now. But that's an interesting one. I know because they're kind of tweaking their tokenomics now, I believe, to like more connect them to like the activity and like incentivizing validators. And I think Marinade 2.0 is coming out relatively soon. And Marinade is one of the ones that's been around for a pretty long time. Like they're an OG Solana.
One of the few, yeah, that's still on chain. December 2021, it looks like it started trading there.
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting.
And they're like the Lido over there, right? Like that's really like they're the LSD for Solana. Is my
It kind of took the first step, even pre-Lido, and then never went the next step with it. And I think now they are, which is going to be interesting. I think there's a thing called Super Stake coming out too. That, but Super Stake's just straight up like leveraged.
It's like looping, yeah. It's like looping your.
That's just looping. That's all it's doing.
Nothing wrong with adding leverage.
No, I
just ask 3AC. What could go wrong? Damn it. Well,
Looping
it looks
spin is
perfect.
continues to go up. Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
economic.
The chart does look delicious from the perspective of like it has kind of troughed out here. It has these insane pumps like every 6 months apparently.
Because it's so liquid.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And it got on my radar after this one. I was looking at it. I didn't buy it. Then it pumped. I was like, damn. But now it's chilling in that reload zone after that. So I might build a little position here. It's very illiquid though. What is it? Yeah, like 250K liquidity. So not a ton. Not much.
Yeah, low.
50K or $50 slugs. Cool, let's go.
I wanted to ask you, Z. Like I know that you were big on GameFi as a potential. Archie, I threw a tweet in the chat, but I've been really thinking a lot about this problem of like, how did Web 2 find an external monetary source that was real and interacted with people's lives? Because like all this Web 2 technology for a long time, it didn't connect with the real world. And it finally came through the form of advertising dollars that like, oh, it's useful for advertising products. And crypto, I feel like, is in that pre-finding its contact with the real world stage right now. And I know your thesis for some time was that it would be GameFi. This is a tweet from Pinboard, some dude who talked a lot about like how ridiculous sort of Web3 is in certain ways, and how Web 2 found its way. But I was wondering, like, what do you feel about that topic? Like, do you still think GameFi is how it eventually connects with the real world? Do you see other opportunities? How do you think this eventually becomes real in a certain sense?
GameFi specifically?
No, I mean crypto in general. Like, how does Web3 make contact with real world problems? Like, how does it end up interacting with the rest of the economy and not be so self-referential?
It's a pretty sophisticated question for a piece of toast, man.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, I still think I still am bullish on gaming. I don't think anybody has figured it out yet in a way that's not that's not really just speculation in another way. And that's like why none of the games really have worked thus far. Or at least none of the big ones, is because they're so tied to people just playing them as another monetary game, the same way that they do with trading tokens or like playing in DeFi. Nobody has figured it out in a way that's like people are playing the game just to play the game. But I do think that like once people do figure that out, then that's going to be a big driver. I've always said that I think that having the decentralized economies in game in the same way that like I feel like what NFTs enable as far as owning all of your like IP, like owning all of your achievements in game and being able to transmit those like easily to other players. I think that's something that was done kind of in traditional games, like a lot of the MMORPGs, but just like without the functionalities that crypto has. I think being able to have that interoperable with all of these other applications that we have on blockchain networks is still going to be pretty big if somebody figures it out in the right way. So still bullish on that. It's honestly tough. I feel like it's really the consumer angle here is like what consumer applications do people want to see on blockchains that aren't purely around financial incentives and speculation. I think DeFi is honestly a core base use case that you're going to need for like as a base layer for everything else. But then it's like when people are on their phones, what's your favorite app on your phone? Or like, what do you do on your computer when you're not either going to the bank or paying your bills, which is like the comparison to DeFi. Like if you ask somebody what their favorite app on their phone is, they're not going to say like their banking app or
right. Yeah.
Whatever. If you're not a trader, you're not going to say like Robinhood. And that's essentially like what a lot of the successful applications in crypto have been thus far. So it's like, how do you tap into that consumer segment? Like what do they want to see? Yeah, I don't know.
I think an iOS game is probably going to be the first one to take off.
But the problem I have with that is that like
a phone
game. It's like crypto not needed. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like in what way is blockchain tech or Web3 tech going to make any of these things better necessarily? I like the argument of owning your own assets, but like if you think about the value segment that represents, like what is the value lost or the willingness of participants to contribute value based around I don't own the shield I got in Zelda, like.
Right. No, I mean, yeah, it's definitely a good argument. I would say that the upside is really like being able to connect to everything else that you have on chain from my point of view. Because I don't want to store, like for me personally, I would prefer to store like most of my cash on like either Bitcoin, Ethereum, or whatever chain, just because I'd prefer that to having my money in traditional systems. So I think if you get people to shift into that mindset, that's when that becomes more of a boon for people. I think other stuff that's interesting is like the decentralized physical network stuff. That's like something that's obviously uniquely enabled by blockchain technology and architecture that is not easily reproducible with current systems. So I think that's interesting. And I'm like curious to see how that space grows. But that also is interesting because it's like one of the things that you definitely need a high throughput chain for, which is also what Solana is.
Yeah, one of the things that like I don't have a solid idea around this yet, but it's like a shape of an idea is that like because I'm involved in the music industry and there's just so much historical heartache around government being responsible for enforcing intellectual property. Like ideas are not property, or they don't have the same characteristics. And like in a way, blockchain gives some of the characteristics of physical property to ideas, like to digital property. And, you know, like within that, you have owning your own assets in game, but you also have like application of IP across all different use cases. So maybe the fact that blockchain gives property rights back to some things might end up being like that use case, and GameFi is part of that.
Yep. No, definitely.
It is a
Not
deep
to get
thought
too nerdy with you
for
guys.
a piece of toast.
Yeah.
No, I like that. I actually just finished the Wu-Tang American Saga series. It's on Disney, oddly enough, and they were talking about the IP rights, a lot of their music, like owning your music. That's the extent of my understanding of that. But
owning your
it's
master.
like taking a vague thing and applying it to like an NFT that represents physical ownership.
Yeah, and the strength of your property rights for them is only congruent to your ability to prosecute. Whereas like in blockchain, it's immutable. So you don't actually need to go after it, but everyone has to agree to like operate in this blockchain ecosystem for that to happen.
I smell a pitch deck.
Yeah.
I expect to see the pitch deck in my
inbox
next month.
I'm doing a $5 billion valuation raise as a piece of toast. Let's go.
Yeah. Good. Well, I just want to point out that WD Gann, rest his soul, has been dead for a long time, but he had some pretty cool ideas. This was his Gann square, and I applied it way back in 2018 to this impulse, and it spit out all these crazy lines that look ridiculous and make TA to the non-TA ors look like a joke. But I just want to point out that this angle, again, established like 4 years ago, has put a line in the sand on today's rally to the pip. Yeah. And I find that fascinating. That's not a flex on my TA. This is just a thing I look at. I didn't trade it. As you know, I took profit earlier, but like, that's crazy. So where the hell did that line come from? Ask WD Gann. Because almost to like $20, that thing just pipped, and we're pulling back now.
It's over, dude.
Well, the stream's over. So it's so over. The stream's ending, so it seems suitable that the rally today would end. What the hell is going on? What's going on?
The Ansem rally.
They're shutting you down.
Yo, what happened to my trading view? It's blue. I got the blue screen of death on trading view.
It's over.
Okay, let's refresh. Unplug, replug. But anyways, let's go zoom in just a little low time frame touch. See how bad this really is. How over is it? I mean, that definitely looks like local toppy. Nice heavy dump, lots of volume coming in. So I can rest easy. I'm not going to go call my broker in an hour and tell him to get this shit in there. I will find a level, and for those of you who don't usually watch the stream, perhaps you're here today to see Z. A really cool tool for this kind of shit when you have a ton of FOMO is this pump chaser zone. I actually made a video about it. You can see it on this YouTube channel. And it basically just gives you a level. That's a terrible way to describe it or show it because the chart's too busy. But it just gives you a level to buy when you're feeling FOMO. That's pretty aggressive. Like it's like instead of ever buying the top. So in that context, I would take the low here and the high we just made and say, okay, when we get into this area, I am going to buy.
I'm going to mortgage my house at that level.
And what's really fucked up, because I made this tool and I still do this, but if I ever don't listen to this idea and I like go and just somehow buy up here or whatever it is, this is always the area where I change my mind and I puke my guts out. And then like a week later it's higher and I'm like, wait, I sold the PCZ again. So like over the years, I've come to disrespect that. And if you,
I mean, it's amazing. You like your name's become somewhat synonymous with it and you still fight it. It's like,
well, I have, no, I don't anymore. I don't fight it anymore, but like in a day,
I'm
like
not saying,
today,
I'm saying,
yeah,
that is so like human nature.
Yeah.
It's out of it.
Well, it's trippy. Like it's written now. It doesn't work in like lazy markets, reload zones, like much deeper dips you get typically. But in a FOMO, like this is a pump. So it seems like pump chaser zone season is appropriate. And I would just say at the very least, give yourself that kind of tool to like find an entry versus like just like emotionally grabbing at highs here. We've just swept a lot of liquidity. We might come down. And if
I'll see you at 12K, dude.
Yeah, it's a really strong trend.
Apple was right, bro.
Yeah, these get front run sometimes, and that's when you get the real crazy moves. So I actually probably would be front running this at like 28.7 if I want to like, if I really need to FOMO in. But just a couple thoughts here, as I know there's a lot of FOMO in the market. There's a ton of sideline capital, and anybody who sold during any of this last 3 months is now quote unquote underwater on those sells. So keep your heads about you guys and find a tool that makes sense. It's simple. This is just the one I use. You can make your own or watch the video and check it out. It works well in pumpy seasons. It doesn't work well in this. Although actually that's kind of stupid to say, because look at this. If you took the high time frame of the whole friggin' Bitcoin year, all it was a perfect tag of that 382. So there you go. PCZ season's back, baby.
Let's go. LFG.
Yeah, buddy. Z, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, dude. If you have more things you want to go on, we can. I just feel like all of our time is relatively important. We're coming up on 2 hours and we should probably cut. And while we're ahead here.
Z, give us a research report, dude.
Yeah.
You want one for Q3, bro?
Yeah, dude.
Q3 report. What is that?
I'm really excited to check out your Substack, like for whatever that next one is.
Dude, he called Q3 2021 perfectly.
2021 was a good year, bro.
Yeah.
I thought I went from 5K to 100K followers.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. No, I got you, bro. I got you.
All right. Well, I look forward to reading that. And if you ever get the urge to come back on here, perhaps during a Solana rally where we can talk about how great we called everything, or just, shoot the shit, talk research. We're here live weekly, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
Yeah. Come talk shit again, Z. Let's go.
Let's do it. Word.
Come hang. And if you ever come out to Toronto, hit me up. I got a few spots here. I'd love to take you out.
Cool.
All right.
All right, man. Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care, guys. Have
Later.
a good one.
Chico, got me frozen and so better leave on my